Murphy, blah, 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 blah. And you're just very comfortable. That comfort factor is the most important thing you look for in any kind of broadcasting, and that's what makes radio and TV so similar.
Bill, you're different in the sense we had Brad Steinke and Dave Silver here and Ron Brooks who have read the sports. You've done that end of it, but you also do play-by-play. You do basketball, as I said, for the university. You've called football. You do the Ice Cats, which I forgot. He does the Ice Cats hockey broadcast play-by-play. Could you maybe comment a little bit on the difference? And you do baseball, the U of A baseball. You've covered most of the sports play-by-play. The difference, which one are the most difficult, and what problems you have with hockey and that sort of thing?
Right, it definitely is, and this ties in with Steve's question too about the difference between radio and TV. On play-by-play, there's a major difference, because on play-by-play, now you're not only the ears to the person, you're also their eyes, because they can't see it when they're listening to a game on radio. So now you've got to go into a lot more detail. You've got to tell them everything that's going on. The wind just picked up a little bit, the third baseman's moving over to cut off the hole between short and third, the outfield's playing in a little bit, or they're shifted over to the left. I mean, you're telling them everything that they can't see now on radio. So you're talking a lot more on radio. You're filling in those gaps, because all this, you want that person to just be able to sit back in his easy chair and just imagine, oh, the wind's picking up at high carbon field, and they can kind of see that. Whereas on TV, you can let up a little bit. You don't have to talk as much, and you can let the picture tell the story a lot more. The old saying about a picture tells 1,000 words, a lot of times you can just let that be the case. A guy hits a home run, call the shot, it's gone, Toros lead 4-2, and then just shut up for 10 seconds while the crowd cheers and the runner comes around the bases and high fives with everybody, and just let that be the story. You don't have to say that he's being mobbed at home plate. They can see he's being mobbed at home plate. So there is a big difference there. As far as the different sports that Jim alludes to, hockey is definitely the toughest, I think, and most of the people I've talked to have said that they think that's the toughest. The puck is constantly changing hands, being poke-checked away from one player to the next, and they're up and down the ice so quickly, and teams are constantly changing players. In basketball and football, you just have a couple changes every now and then during a series of plays, and you don't have to worry about whole lines coming on like they do with every change. Every stoppage you play in hockey, usually 5 new skaters come on to the ice, 2 new defensemen and 3 new forwards, and you have to identify now that's this and this player on the front line, and this guy in the defense, and you really are constantly. I feel exhausted after a hockey broadcast, whereas basketball and baseball, I'll frequently sign off. And I hope you can all share this feeling someday, that I'm sure Ron and Jim share too, that you'll sign off on something with so much Cleveland Indians spring training games at High Carbon Field, and just looking over the shoulders of the various announcers as they would come through the press box, I noticed this very nicely outlined scorebook where he had all of his, and I had one with me, I'd show it to you, but they had everything outlined very nicely, and then there was a diagram at the top of the page just built out like a diamond of a baseball field, and you could put in each one of the defensive players in their exact spot, so that very quickly when the ball's hit by a home team and it's to left field, you can just real quickly look to that left field position on the visiting team's score page, and there it is. And you can write little notes underneath each player, and there's a column on each side for notes on each player. And it's really
work for your hockey though.
No. With hockey, they're constantly changing positions, so it doesn't work for that. Then you have to have, especially, and any of you that ever come by any of the broadcasts when you're out here, I'd like to extend an invitation too to come on up to the press box and wave and introduce yourself again and say that we met today, and I'd be glad to show you around and show you some of the different things we're doing before a broadcast. But you just have papers and notes and things taped up on the walls. If you could have seen our booth at Omaha for the College World Series, I mean, we had notes taped up on the windows. We leave a sight line for ourselves so we can see through, but then you have papers up on the windows right in front of you so you can read right off of the different things there, and statistics on your left, and game notes on your right, and there's just all sorts of information so you've got it all right at your fingertips.
Do you ever mess up the players, the names of the players?
Yes. I wish I could say no, but you sure do, especially in hockey and soccer that you mentioned. You can get them confused very easily. The most embarrassing one I had this year, and I'll admit it to you, and it's overcoming fear plus failure. You just have to go right on with the rest of the game. And I'm sure we had a good audience with it. It was an Arizona State-Arizona baseball game. And we had talked on and on and on about Rick Morris, who was up for Arizona State, being a big home run hitter and how tough he was. he struck out, and on the very next pitch, Ted Dyson of Arizona State hit a home run. And I still had my mind set on Rick Morris, and I called it Rick Morris hitting the home run. And
Did the other
Bruce,
player get mad?
well, they didn't hear, they were Arizona State players, fortunately, so I hope they never even heard about it. But what made it especially embarrassing was that Ted Dyson's from Amphi High School. And so I'm sure there were people listening. Ted Dyson, D-Y-S-O-N, he's a junior at ASU now, so he would have been at Amphi about 3 or 4 years ago. But I'm sure some of the people and friends of Ted Dyson were probably watching, and when I was saying, and Rick Morris has just put ASU on the board, they lead 1-0, they were probably thinking, Roemer, you idiot, that's Ted Dyson. And they were right. I mean, I really felt bad about that, and those are one of those mistakes, though, that you make. You realize it, you feel bad in the pit of your stomach, but now you've got 7 more innings of broadcast to go. You can't let it get you flustered. You just got to go on.
You apologize and say, I'm sorry, that wasn't Ted Dyson, or that wasn't so-and-so, that was Ted Dyson.
Right, right. What we do, a good point that you like to have in coordination with your color commentator is you never want your partner to show you up. If you're making a mistake on the air and misidentifying somebody, you just have your partner, you've got everything laid out in front of you, and say on the score sheet, it's got Rick Morris hitting 3rd and Ted Dyson's hitting 4th, well, he will just point across to me when I'm saying Morris got all of that one, blah, blah, blah. He'll just point over at Dyson and like tap his finger, and then I can know what he's talking about. And I say, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, that was Ted Dyson. And I tried to make levity out of it. Ted Dyson is a left-handed hitter, and Rick Morris is a right-handed hitter, and Ted Dyson's about 3 inches taller and 10, 15 pounds heavier. And I said, oh, well, they look so much alike. They're only 3 inches different, 20 pounds difference in weight. They hit from the different side of the plate. You know, that's why I made the mistake in tying the two together. And I tried to make a joke out of it, but it's a mistake you'd never want to make. But yes, you do. You better apologize and correct your mistake right away, not just leave it.
When you said getting started in radio first, what do you mean, what would you do in radio?
The best way to get in is disc jockey work. There are more disc jockey jobs in broadcasting than there are news jobs or sportscaster jobs or technical side jobs. I mean, every radio station you look at the roster of the people, and they've got 7 or 8 disc jockeys out of a 19-person on-air staff or something like that. They'll probably only have 1 or 2 sportscasters and 2 or 3 newscasters. So your best bet is to try to get into the DJ side of it, and then just hope, wait for those opportunities, consistently tell the boss that you're very interested in sports and news, and if there's an opening, you'd like to get a shot at it. If one day the afternoon newsman can't cover a breaking news story out on the east side of town, you're just getting off the air from your DJ shift, hey, I'd love to cover that. Go out and do a bang-up job on that newscaster job, and you might have that newscaster's job the next day if you want it. I mean, you can make your own opportunities. Jim?
Well, there's an old philosophy in radio sportscasters. If you make a mistake, don't go back and apologize for it, because the listener at home doesn't know you called the wrong number or the wrong name. That's a different theory. You know, never admit your mistakes. Just go on.
If it's on, I mean, something as major as the Dyson-Morris case, though, I think I'd have to make a correction on that. Right. If it's just something minor, then just keep on going.
Sure. You see the wrong number and you call the wrong ball carrier. Well, when I did play-by-play, I just never admitted to a mistake, because the people can't see it anyway. They don't know. But when you start saying, oh, I was wrong, I got the wrong number.
Yeah, right. You don't want to do that, especially if it's something. Now, if say it's a guy that scored a touchdown, you've got to identify that, right? And hit a home run, I'd put that in the same category. If it's a ball carrier and he maybe gained whirl away and all this and that, at that point, he said I had to just eat the microphone, and what could I do? He said I couldn't have the horse suddenly change jockeys. I mean, he said I couldn't do that in the middle of the race and just say, because he had read that Willie Shoemaker has won the Kentucky Derby. Well, he couldn't suddenly put Willie Shoemaker on whirl away instead of the horse he was on. So he just had to come back and say, ladies and gentlemen, I made a terrible mistake.
Unless there are other questions, why don't we go to some tape?
Sure. Are there any other questions at this point? Okay. What I did, I brought along, one of the real fun things of broadcasting is you can tie together videotapes and really have fun with some different graphics. We put together last year on Cox Cable with our Tucson Toros games, we put together an open that we were pretty proud of. And an open is about a 60-second opening introduction to try to set the scene for the fans, to try to get them kind of enthused that here comes Toros baseball. And put some music with a little bit of highlights, and you'll see some of the graphics that we added in with it. And then how it ties right into the very beginning of the game. When we went out to the game, we got highlights of some games right before that. Some of the better, exciting plays, a lot of movement. This is called a split screen effect.
It communicates news. It communicates just about everything you can imagine. You're going to be, or you want to be, in the communications business. The communications business. I can give you right now the surefire first step to being successful in the communications business. And I coached rugby players at the university for 12 years now. I played baseball. I'm still heavily involved in baseball. I'm involved in the advertising and marketing world, which includes, I used to work for Anheuser-Busch, and I used to run around the Clydesdales and all those people. That's a matter of fact when I met Ron years ago. If you're going to be in the communications business, learn the number one most important tool. And I'm not lying to you. It's going to be boring. You're not going to like it. I hated it myself. But I was lucky because I had a nun who was much bigger than me. You know, I had Sister Mary Genghis Khan, you know, when I was in 6th grade. And she and all her horses came in there every day and said, you are going to learn how to diagram a sentence. You are going to learn the English language. That is your most important tool to be successful in communications and the broadcast industry. After you get involved in that, then everything else will fall into place. Don't take that lightly. I'll give you an example, something probably many of you did not know. Reggie Jackson. Everybody heard of Reggie Jackson? Who hasn't, right? Reggie Jackson gets paid by Mr. Gene Autry, another great communicator. He owns radio stations, TV stations. He was a singing cowboy in his heyday. Now he owns the California Angels amongst most of California and everything else. But Gene Autry pays Reggie Jackson about a little over $1.2 million a year to play baseball. Okay? And then he gets more money, 50 cents per head, over 2 million fans that the Angels draw every year. He makes a lot of cash playing baseball. But that is his second income source on a yearly basis. Reggie Jackson makes more money a year talking. When he was young, growing up, if you ever listen to a Reggie Jackson interview, his father would not allow him to answer in simple grunts and monosyllables. Yeah, sure, nah. Reggie wasn't allowed to talk like that at home. Take out the trash, Reggie. Yes, sir, I will tend to it right away. No, sir, I'll do it in a little bit. That's how Reggie Jackson grew up. And because of that discipline he learned as a kid, and he hated it. But now he knows how to talk. And when somebody puts a microphone in front of Reggie Jackson these days, it's hard to stop him. But Reggie Jackson communicates with the English language very well. There's a young man now in San Diego who does that very well too. It's Tony Gwynn. Excellent right fielder for the San Diego Padres. He's going to make a ton of money because he knows how to talk. And all of us can have if everybody's got a tongue and a throat, you're going to be able to talk. Let's learn how to talk well. That is the end of my sermon. But I hope I can make the point to you. That's the most important thing you'll learn. English language is a discipline. You speak it every day at home, you speak it with your friends, so you take it for granted. But you can't take it for granted. There are a whole lot of horrible, complex rules you have to learn if you want to be successful. The English language is your most important tool to being successful, not only in broadcasting, but being successful in school or whatever business endeavor you happen to try when you do go out of school. I promise you, it's the most important thing. And I hated it too. I hated sitting there writing the papers over and over again until my hand wanted to drop. And then all of a sudden they introduced this horrible machine to me that was a typewriter, and I had to learn how to type, and then I hated that too. But it's the honest to goodness truth. Learn the English language as best as you can. It not only will help you in broadcasting, but it will help you in whatever business you go into. Okay. Let me tell you about my weird introduction into broadcasting. I told you the story I wanted to come here to play baseball. And this all relates, and I'll tell it as fast as I can. But I ended up not playing baseball here because I've been beat up too much playing baseball. So I ended up playing something else that seems safer to me, which is rugby. So I played rugby for 4 years at the U of A. And after my senior year, our coach got a job with the State Department out of this country, so there was no other rugby coaches, and I was lucky enough to go overseas a couple of times and play, so I became the rugby coach here, quite by accident. I've been doing that for 10 years. So when I took that job, rugby here at the university did not have enough money. I then went to a place called Golden Eagle Distributors here in Tucson. Met a man by the name of Bill Clements, and he's the president of that company now, and of course they distribute all those Anheuser-Busch beers. And I got him to sponsor rugby to a certain extent on campus. When I got fully done with my college classes, got my degree, I went to work for him starting a